Pro-Palestinian activist and legal U.S. resident Mahmoud Khalil, he remains locked away at an ICE detention center in Louisiana. His attorneys argue in court to get him out. So authorities arrested him Saturday. Federal officials, they want him deported out of the country over his allegedly leading last year's protests at Columbia University. Well, now we see protests of a different sort supporting Mr. Khalil. They've really become the norm outside of that Manhattan courthouse that you see right there. They join his attorneys in arguing that Mr. Khalil had a right to protest. Meanwhile, the president says you might see more arrests connected with last year's protests. So much to talk about there. CBS News legal reporter and attorney Katrina Kaufman joins us live in New York. You were outside that courthouse yesterday. So we understand the Trump administration filed a motion in this case. Can you break that down for us?
Correct, Reed. The government has asked to either have this case dismissed or transferred. And Reed, what they're specifically asking for is for the case to be dismissed without prejudice, it's called, so you could bring the charges again, due to the basis of lack of jurisdiction or venue. What they're arguing is that a habeas petition has to be filed to the immediate custodian in the place where Khalil was detained. He was arrested in New York, and they say his wife had been told he was being brought to 26 Federal Plaza in New York, where he was initially. But then, Reed, he was checked into a detention facility in Newark, New Jersey. And when his attorneys filed this habeas petition at 4:40 in the morning, that's where he was located at that time. Then he was transferred to Louisiana. So what the government argues and what they said in court yesterday is that the right jurisdiction for this is either Louisiana or New Jersey, but not the Southern District of New York.
And I've seen some of the arguments relative to that and sort of scaffolding off of that base argument is that Mr. Khalil has not had it easy to have even some contact with his attorneys. What are you saying there?
That is something that was raised in court yesterday by Khalil's lawyers. They said that they hadn't had any privileged conversations with him. That's protected by attorney-client privilege. They'd only been able to have one conversation at all, and that was cut off, they said. The government in court said it was the first they were hearing of it, and the judge ended up granting them attorney-client privileged calls both 1 hour yesterday and then 1 hour today, because they said it was very crucial for them to, of course, talk to their client, have access to him, and they're making an amended petition for habeas, and they wanted to be able to confirm with him on that as well.
All right, so let's really get down to the brass tacks here. Mr. Khalil, in the United States legally, a legal resident of the United States under green card status. And the big question here, does somebody with legal status have the right to protest, just like a U.S. citizen?
Reed, they absolutely do. Non-citizens have the same First Amendment rights when they're in the United States. And this is the issue that all of the lawyers that I've been talking to are most concerned about. They say the immigration issues are, of course, important, but the core here is the First Amendment, that whether or not you agree with what Mr. Khalil was talking about, he has this right to free public speech and to protest, and the greater concern is the wider chilling effect that this could have.
And this morning on NPR, I heard an interview where a U.S. lawmaker called him a terrorist. Do they have any evidence that he was doing anything other than protesting? Because the allegations here are pretty heavy from those who say they want him out of the country. What do they know?
To my knowledge, I haven't heard of any evidence. This was not discussed in court yesterday. The judge did give them an opportunity to bring up the merits of this case, but we're also not seeing it in the charges, Reed. I obtained a document yesterday, and the reason it says the basis for having him deported is this obscure provision of immigration law that essentially says that Khalil's presence or activities in this country are adverse to U.S. foreign policy interest. We did hear the White House claim that he was passing out Hamas-related pamphlets. I don't believe that that would rise to the level anyways. They would really need to show that he was materially providing assistance to terrorists, and we have not heard evidence about this yet.
We await them to argue the merits of this case. Katrina Kaufman, legal expert and a lawyer. At that, thank you so much for streaming with us today. We always appreciate your perspectives.